Coming up, a big weekend visitor for Tennessee and a possible holiday for Alabama fans. We'll tell you all about it next, right here on SEC Country Live. Hello and welcome to SEC Country Live. My name is Brandon Adams. This is the former Alabama All-American Mike Johnson. We hope you all had a fantastic weekend. The weather was beautiful for the most part in our town of Atlanta here. A little bit of a weather issue yesterday, but a great weekend, raring to go for the brand new week here.
Yeah, definitely. I had a good weekend yesterday. Obviously, I went to the NASCAR race down in Atlanta.
Yeah, I did too, actually, for what it's worth.
I went with a cooler full and came back with a cooler empty. So
I went with a 6-year-old. my experience my experience was the exact opposite of that in every way imaginable whatsoever.
I drove the truck down. The girlfriend or my fiance drove the truck back.
Well, so good for you. I'm glad you had a good time, and we're glad you're with us. Hope you have a good time with us as well as we talk about the SEC here for the next 60 minutes. By the way, share the show with your friends on Facebook. Let them know we're talking about the SEC here each and every day. And for those of you checking us in on YouTube, we appreciate you being here on the program today. We'll look forward to kind of talking to both of our comment sections on Facebook Live and YouTube throughout the day and throughout the week here. Let me start with the Tennessee Vols here, though, because I think the big story of the weekend around the Southeastern Conference may have involved a visitor to Knoxville. It's the subject of item number 1 here in our SEC Country Live First and 10 list. And a story that we talked about a few weeks ago was Keller Chryst, one-time Stanford quarterback, who loses his job to is it KJ Costello? I always get the initials confused, but the Costello kid out there in Stanford, who's a terrific quarterback. Well, that opened the door for Keller Chryst maybe go find somewhere else to go. He tweeted his explanation for kind of what his future was going to be. He said, and this has been a while ago now, this is back in January, he says, after 4 seasons at Stanford, I've decided to transfer for my 5th year of eligibility when I graduate in June. Thank you to Stanford University, the Stanford program, especially my teammates for the experiences here. Looking forward to what the future holds. Well, we don't know where the landing spot for Keller Chryst is going to be, but as we speculated not too long ago, one of the spots he's at least considering is the University of Tennessee. He does visit Knoxville over the weekend. We have a quote here from Chryst in terms of his time there. Now, he gave a lot of quotes to SECCountry.com, or actually this is VolQuest.com, the rival site. But the quote I want to pull for you here is, Chryst says, hopefully I can make my decision soon, so it's best for all parties. It's too soon to rank the schools comparatively, but I really liked what they have to offer. That is Keller Chryst, the one-time Stanford quarterback, talking about his visit to Tennessee, and he kind of talked about some of the things that he liked there. I mean, how big of a deal do you think it is that Chryst is visiting Tennessee, considering Tennessee? I mean, where do you land on this?
I think it could be a huge deal. Obviously, he's not going to be handed the keys to the starting offense as soon as he walks in the door. I think that Jared Garantano has obviously earned that right. Will McBride's still on the roster, and those are 2 guys that will be competing with him. But, I think this starts to obviously develop, and I think, Tyson Hilton came out a few weeks ago and said that, listen, this is going to be a pro-style offense, but we need somebody who can also throw an accurate deep ball. And I think Keller Chryst obviously fits into that. Now, I think it's interesting the fact that they're pursuing him so hard because obviously he's been told something that he will have every opportunity to win the job. To me, it's more about the offense they'll be running, what Jeremy Pruitt is looking for in a quarterback, and what they're going to do, moving forward this year in terms of Jared Garantano, a guy who is a dual-threat quarterback. So I think it could be a big deal if he lands there and if he wins a starting job. You look at what it could be this year. It could be awesome for Tennessee fans. I'm just not sure yet.
Trey Dukes, man, we're not even in there for 2 minutes.
What's he on? What's he
He's
talking
going
about?
straight for the jugular. Look, I have feelings. He says, man, we got to get BA in the gym.
Come on,
Trey.
Now.
Come on.
Yeah, no, that's mean, man. Let's post a picture of you on there, Trey.
I mean, I'm trying to talk about the Tennessee quarterback situation. I'm trying to talk about a visitor. You're going to go straight to the we got to get me in the gym thing?
There's also some people on the YouTube page actually going after you, and Justin DeMarco says, from our family to yours, happy holidays, BA.
We'll have more on that coming up in a moment.
Holiday later on today.
Alabama fans are going to be heard from on that today. But you're going to give me the hard time about the weight?
That's rough, man. That is rough. We're all trying.
If I wasn't working all day long getting the show ready, I'd have more time to go to the gym. How about that, Trey?
Yeah,
but anyway, back to the Keller Chryst thing here for a moment. My takeaway on this is it's very similar to what we said last year about Malik Zaire going to Florida. As it turns out, Malik Zaire was not a savior for Florida. He wasn't even a good quarterback. I mean, he never even played. But it was helpful, I believe, for Florida to have the extra quarterback on the roster. You know, now they had injuries. You know, Del Rio got hurt. As it turns out, Felipe Franks may not be that good. So you know, they had their own issues they had to deal with there. But having the extra quarterback couldn't have hurt. And it's the same thing for Tennessee here. Garantano, I think over the long haul, Tennessee's probably better off if he starts here. But getting some depth by adding a guy like Keller Chryst into the mix here just ensures that what you're trying to do right now for a coach that's never coached before, brand new program, you're trying to make sure that you're basically buying insurance against your quarterback situation being a disaster.
Yeah.
With Will McBride and Jared Garantano, there's a chance it's just an unmitigated disaster. I'm not telling you that Keller Chryst comes in and sets the world on fire. I'm not telling you it is, you know, Tim Tebow or Danny Werfel or Peyton Manning or somebody like that. But having three of those guys just as a little bit of an insurance policy against it being a disaster.
No, I agree with you. And listen, I think this is a bigger deal, in my opinion, than Malik Zaire last year. Yeah, I thought it was funny, and we pointed to it on the show. It's been a long time now, but you know, Jim McElwain comes out and says, "Man, we're just trying to hit our numbers. We're trying to hit our roster numbers in the quarterback room." I had like 5 quarterbacks on scholarship. Right. They were trying to bring Malik Zaire in to see if he was a good quarterback. This is different. I mean, you got JT Shrout you just signed. But other than that, you got Will McBride and Jared Garantano. Yeah. Dormity's out the window right now. You need Keller Chryst to come in, if nothing else, for the depth. And we've had a couple people over here in the YouTube comment section. You know, this is something they need. They have to have the depth starting to develop. So, your question to me to start it off was, how big of a deal is this for Tennessee? I'm not sure yet. It could end up being a huge deal if they implement the offense they want. And obviously we're going to get in the offensive line here in just a second, and I'm probably going to let some people off the hook as far as that quarterback position goes. So that's going to be another topic in and of itself.
Yeah, so we'll talk more about that throughout the program, both on the YouTube side of things and on the Facebook Live side of things, as Tennessee does host Keller Chryst. We'll kind of see where it goes, and we'll see if Tennessee's kind of able to add him in the fold. Justin Marco wished me a happy holiday a moment ago. You may be wondering what this is. I saw this online today. All I could do is just kind of roll my eyes at this. It's the subject of item number 2 on our SEC Country Live First and 10 list. Now, the first person I saw do this was Ryan Fowler, who we kind of mentioned from time to time here on the SEC Country Live because he hosts our Alabama SEC Country podcast. And on his Twitter feed today promoting his radio show, he said, "Happy February 26th." You may be wondering, what in the world's February 26th? Well, 2nd and 26 was the touchdown pass that Tua Tagovailoa threw to Devontae Smith to win the national championship game back in January. He says 2nd and 26 on 2/26. That was his way of promoting his radio show. I don't know if it was his idea or what, but that was he was the first person that I saw do that. The Alabama Compliance Office, it's like the official Alabama compliance Twitter account. They also kind of got in the mix on this one as too. They say happy 2/26, as in 2nd and 26, roll tide. Is this really what we're going to do today? I mean, have Georgia fans on this issue not been through enough? Do we have to make a holiday now at a 2nd 26?
Yeah, in terms of like how in love with this I am, it's like 5 out of 10. I don't love it. I actually hated it when New England Patriots rolled out their Super Bowl rings. They had 283 diamonds from the 28-3 score. I hated that. I don't hate this, obviously, because it makes Alabama fans feel good, and you get to watch the video a ton of times on Twitter and social media today. But I don't love it. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm kind of like, hey, if there's a 24-hour rule after like regular season games, maybe there should be like a 24-day rule after national championship games. I don't know. I'm not in love with it. I think it's funny. I think it's kind of comical, but I can understand why Georgia fans might not, kind of give you the eye roll.
Yeah, listen, honestly, I mean, I'm just glad to know Georgia's on their mind. That's all. I'm just glad to know Georgia's on their mind. And maybe Georgia will celebrate the holiday every first of the month. Think about being number 1 in recruiting.
Yeah, well, listen, the recruiting national championship trophies on its way to Athens.
Oh, right? Please. Don't act for 9 seconds like Alabama hasn't been bragging about that thing forever.
We love
By the way, speaking of the Tua Tagovailoa touchdown pass to Devontae Smith, Nick Saban actually a couple days ago made an appearance. It's some sort of Mercedes event. A lot of reporters there, including AL.com, they captured a little bit of Saban talking about the Tua Tagovailoa touchdown pass, and actually kind of a rare lighthearted moment from Saban. I guess all it takes is some Mercedes money. All of a sudden, Saban's got jokes. Take a listen.
How it happened was I asked Tua after the game, I said, "Why did you take a sack when we needed a field goal to stay in the game?" And he said, "We just needed more room to throw the ball." So that's how it happened. That's pretty funny.
So this is one of those things where, I do have to admit, I would be a hypocrite if I were to be too critical of Alabama for this, given the fact that anytime it's some other SEC school picking on another SEC school for something like this, I mean, I am sort of always for this in terms of, stir the pot that much more. And so it'd be wrong for me to be too critical of Alabama for the same kind of thing that I'm always egging the other SEC schools on. So you know what? if this is what I need to do as sort of a magnanimous gesture, Alabama fans, by all means, have your fun today.
Right, a little peace offering from BA on this lovely Monday here in Atlanta. And listen, this to me is kind of that Nick Saban that you get at like, Red Elephant or Crimson Caravan, Booster Club meetings. This is like Nick Saban talking to the Booster Clubs. Not in front of the media usually. This is like what Nick Saban's like when he's talking to just Alabama fans. So it is funny to see him kind of open up with a camera and a microphone in front of his face, knowing this is going to be talked about on shows like this and kind of make those statements. It's a Nick Saban we don't see much, and so it is kind of his head poking out.
Well, I will say from the perspective of a Georgia fan, it's kind of interesting that you kind of have this going on because, most of the SEC rivalries that we kind of stir the pot with here on SEC Country Live, we are guaranteed to see them renew. I go back and forth with Florida fans. Georgia and Florida are going to play each other every single year. Yeah. Alabama, Tennessee, Alabama, LSU, certainly the Iron Bowl. We talked about that a lot last week. These teams are going to play each other every year. There's really no guarantee that Georgia and Alabama are going to play this year or really, again, anytime soon.
I mean 2020 is the next.
Is that the next scheduled game? Obviously, Georgia fans are hoping to be in the SEC championship in December. Alabama fans want to be back there as well, and so I think that both sides are maybe hopeful to get. I know, at least certainly in the case of Georgia fans, hopeful to get that rematch coming in December. But this is a little bit different than. And, up until now, I don't know that Alabama-Georgia has been considered a rivalry necessarily, but this is a little bit different than typical SEC rivalries in that, okay, so you'll kind of stir things up a little bit now, but there's really no guarantee these two teams are going to play.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things to it because we do talk about Georgia, Alabama, and, these recruiting powerhouses kind of coming together and getting to play in a national title game. You just don't know when you're going to see it. I mean, we can talk about it all day long. You can talk about, how, what Georgia needs to do to recruiting-wise to kind of match up with Alabama and how Alabama needs to stay on top to stay ahead of programs like Georgia. But who knows when we'll see it on the field again. So I think it's an interesting topic to talk about only if both teams make there. And as we saw last year, Bama didn't make there, so anything can happen.
Over on YouTube, and by the way, 98 Sports Talk says, glad to see you guys finally reading the YouTube comments. Listen, this is one of the few things I'm going to give Mike Johnson credit for. Mike is actually, he has spearheaded the movement to get YouTube more on the show. Mike has actually come up big in two regards. For the Alabama fans, he got the sticker change on the helmet. You got to give him a lot of credit for that because I can promise you I had no motivation to help that whatsoever. And Mike has sort of shoehorned the YouTube comments onto the show because the truth is, I am maybe a little bit too Facebook-centric when it comes to that, but I'm having a good time commenting on the Facebook side and the YouTube side of things. Steve Weaver says that Georgia and Alabama haven't been considered a rivalry since that blackout game going back to 2008, a game that Mike played in, by the way. And yeah, I mean, that's back in a day and age when Georgia sort of really took it on the chin and in a big game like that against Alabama. And, that's an example of something that I do know that people like bringing up against Georgia, which is the idea of, hey, Georgia was in a big spot before and didn't live up to the hype. And so, yeah, that 2008 game was it stung for a lot of
Listen, probably my favorite college games attending of all time was the 2012 SEC Championship game. Mm-hmm. So I look past whatever 2008 was. Obviously, I played in it, so it was a big deal to me. But I always get stuck on that 2012 SEC Championship game. How different things could have been if Georgia wins that game and gets the extra 5 or 6 yards and makes it the national title game.
Tyler Mann, by the way, asked you on YouTube. He said you talked about coming home with an empty cooler from the race yesterday. The NASCAR race was in Atlanta. He said, were you tired or hungover? So are you feeling okay today?
I said 100% hangover. But I mean, I feel fine. I just,
I mean, listen, I don't even know what it feels like on the weekend to sort of kick back, relax, watch a little NASCAR. Yeah. I mean, I'm chasing and I wouldn't have traded it for anything. Don't get me wrong; it's the best experience, of my life. But I'm chasing my 6-year-old around that racetrack yesterday. Right. I mean, he's going as fast as the cars are half the time. We're talking about the exact opposite experience for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't have many Sunday fun days these days. It's mostly a Saturday kind of thing for me. But yesterday was one of those Sunday deals. I've actually had 2 of them in a row because I was in Daytona last week. So I'm looking forward to maybe taking a chill Sunday this weekend.
By the way, Bo Molinari wants you to come to see a game in Aggie Land. He says that's the best college game day experience you'll ever see.
Oh, I'm sure it is. No, I just mean like product, as far as the game on the field, I think the best game I ever saw in person was the 2012 SEC Championship. It was an incredible game. It really was.
All right, let's do item number 3 here on our SEC Country Live First and 10 list. A busy recruiting weekend for the Florida Gators as well. They add a couple commits here. These commits kind of putting their business out there on social media. You can take a look here. Jamal Abrams, the linebacker here from Alabama, says 100%, 110% committed to the University of Florida. I want to make sure we give him credit for the extra 10% there. You see the list of photos, including the Gator Chomp there with Dan Mullen, the other big commitment coming in from Deontay Marks as well. He says we're going to make this legendary committed. So Florida adding a couple commits here. Dan Mullen adding his first 2019 commits and taking the Florida job. The previous 2019 commits had been holdovers from the the Jim McElwain era. What do you think about Dan Mullen getting his first 2019 commitments?
I don't think either one of these guys are going to be the cornerstones of your class. I don't think they're going to be the cornerstones of your program. But what I love about it is these are guys that Dan Mullen's gotten to see up close. These are obviously guys that when you look at Florida as a program, they should be able to reach out and grab guys like this when they want to, and they flex their muscle in doing that this weekend. These, you're up against programs like Louisville, like Oregon, some of the other programs from around the United States. And when Florida offers those guys, they ought to commit, and that's exactly what Dan Mullen did this weekend. He offers, they commit on the spot because they're Florida. I love it. Like I said, I don't think either one of these guys become like the headliner of your class. Sure. I think both these guys are like composite 3-star ranking guys. But they're nice things to build around for the future. And like I've been saying, Dan Mullen's trend continues to kind of go upwards in that trajectory.
They are the 4th and 5th commits for the 2019 class for Florida. I'm looking at the 24/7 Sports kind of composite deal here of these guys. The only current 4-star commit for Florida is Jamarcus Weston, who's a athlete from Clewiston, Florida. The other 4 guys, including Abrams and Marks, we just talked about, both 3-star guys. And here's one of the things that I do think is be interesting to watch with Dan Mullen. That Mullen has been at a place like Mississippi State where a sprinkling of 4- and 5-star guys, a Jeffrey Simmons, guys like that. That's a nice job.
Leo Lewis.
Leo Lewis. That's the name I was trying to grab for there. Lewis and Jeffrey Simmons. You're adding big-time recruits like that to a group of junior college and 3-star guys. For the most part, you're doing pretty well. At Florida, though, the expectation is to get a majority 4- and 5-star guys. If you sign 25 guys in a given year, at least 13 of those guys need to be 4- and 5-star guys. Otherwise, you're not keeping pace with the top level of the SEC. So I do think, and I want you to tell me if you think this is fair, adding an Abrams, adding a Marks based on your own scouting, that's great. But at a certain point in time, I need to see a flurry of 4-star guys coming into the Florida program. I need to see a run of like 6, 7, 8, 9 of these guys added in here for Dan Mullen to be recruiting at even what is an acceptable level for Florida. Forget about the level that Will Muschamp had the program, and then before that, obviously, Urban Meyer from a recruiting standpoint. You're going to see that flurry of 4- and 5-star guys for Mullen to be recruiting at a level commensurate with what Florida should be.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And here's how I kind of picture this starting to happen too is, listen, these recruiting sites, all of a sudden they look at these guys, wow, man, that guy's committed to Florida. Let me take a look back at his tape. Let me see what he is his senior year. Let me see how this guy develops. Let me see what he does through all these spring camps and summer camps. And so maybe there is a possibility that you reach out to both these guys and one of them ends up with a 4-star. Or maybe they get attention from other programs around the country. Maybe they don't even end up at Florida. So a lot of things are left to change. I think these guys, obviously, that's what I think the biggest deal is about this, that Dan Mullen got to lay his own eyes on these guys. This is not him reaching out by phone and saying, hey, we really like your tape. We want you to be a part of it. He got to see these guys with his own eyes. And if you trust his own talent evaluation, then you should be excited at what Dan Mullen's doing.
Rick Keene, though, is a Florida fan. I agree with what Rick says here. He says, I like that we're making some ground on recruiting for the next year, but I wish they were bigger names. 3 stars are good. Just make sure to leave room and make priority for the 4- and 5-star kids. And Rick, who's a Florida fan, I'm the exact opposite of that, but I think that we're actually kind of on the same page about this. And this is one of those things, even go back, we're basically coming up on our 1-year anniversary of doing SEC Country Live. Go back and listen to what I was saying about Florida at the very beginning of last year. I mean, I was on the record about this a lot. Florida was not recruiting at a level that Florida ought to be recruiting at. All the issues that Florida have dealt with, that did deal with under the Jim McElwain era, it all goes back to what happened to that laundry list of 4- and 5-star guys. I mean, when was the last time Florida, for instance, got a player from IMG Academy? That's an example of one of those issues that Rick Keene's kind of talking about there. This is not me criticizing the 2 guys that Florida did get. But I think on a day and a weekend when Florida does add 2 recruits, it's a reminder of where Dan Mullen needs to be to have Florida where it's supposed to be.
No, I agree with you. And listen, you got to give credit to you too, because going back a year, you definitely were on that bandwagon. If I don't know if Jim McElwain's doing enough for the long run to kind of stick around in Gainesville, and it ended up coming to fruition during the middle of the year. Obviously, bumping heads with the administration and having to exit the program. And I just think that, I think this is good news. I don't want to jump over the top, and it's why I mentioned last week. It's almost like we need a star rating for how excited you have to be about the news, because this kind of comes up around like the 6 or 7 mark for me. I don't know, 6 or 7 out of 10. I don't know that this is great news. I don't know this is elite news. I think it's good news for Dan Mullen. I think when you offer these kind of guys, the guys that are 3 stars, I think they ought to be able to commit on the spot, and I think that's exactly what he got. So I think he flexed his muscle a little bit.
Mike Massey says that Mullen looks like a dork doing the gator chop. Can I see one of those tweets that's got Mullen doing the gator chop? I think either one of them. Can we see one of those one more time? I don't mind Mullen on this. I mean, I don't mind Mullen on this. I mean, I think either one of them. Can we see one of those one more time? You know, I don't mind Mullen on this. I mean, I think either one of them. Can we see one of those one more time? You know, I don't mind Mullen on this. I mean, I think either one of them. Can we see one of those one more time? You know, I don't mind Mullen on this. I mean, I think either one of them. Can we see one of those one more time? You know, I don't mind Mullen on this. I mean, I think either one of them. Can we see one of those one more time? You know, I don't mind Mullen on this. I mean, I think either one of them. Can we see one of those one more time? You know, I don't mind Mullen on this. I mean, I think either one of them. Can we see one of those one more time? You know, I don't mind Mullen on this. I mean, I think either one of them. Can we see one of those one more time? You know, I don't mind Mullen on this. I mean, I think either one of them. Can we see one of those one more time? You know, I don't mind Mullen on this. I mean, I think either one of them. Can we see one of those one more time? You know, I don't mind Mul Honestly, I think that for Florida to have like a hand signal like that that's recognizable for the most part all around college football, I mean, that's probably not a bad thing for the Gators overall.
I don't think it's bad at all. I mean, I think, you look more.
I mean, for me, it's a profane gesture.
Yeah,
but,
more. I don't have any problem with him smiling, doing the Gator chomp. He's got kind of the slick back hair like me and you both kind of got, but he's kind of a clean cut guy. I think that it's something he has to do. I think that if he wasn't doing things like that, y'all be pointing to him going, man, really, he's kind of stuck up. I don't know what he's doing. He needs to be more goofy and more like the players.
The thing that Mullen rocks is he rocks like the definite part, like a really sharp, hard part right down the side of his hair there. He kind of has that deal going on, but I'm not going to give him a hard time for the Gator chomp there.
Kate Thompson said he wears those white sneakers like the greeter at Walmart. Boy, that's
that is the one move, and Bielema used to do this at Arkansas. Mullen does this too, where like they try to rock the tennis shoes. I mean, I feel like for Florida it's the Jordan brand stuff. But going back to the time at Mississippi State, it was like the Adidas tie-in.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
One of the hip hop guys had the Adidas deal going on there. I feel like all of that is a little too much. That's trying a little bit too hard.
Yeah. I mean, as far as coaches' clothes go, I usually give most of them pass. Now I did like Al Golden. Boy, I hated watching Al Golden when he was at Miami. Boy, he had the tie and just a big baggy like TJ Maxx shirt. That it's like, what are you doing out there, dude? You're making $3 million.
Yeah, no,
get you a tailor, buddy.
Not a good look. I mean, I guess it's better than Saban's Argyle sweater. I guess.
Yeah, listen. The first thing that Nick Saban did when he got to Alabama, I noticed this with my own eyes. It was like he couldn't find enough Alabama gear to actually like buy or pull off the shelves, so he like had his own like tailor come in and start stitching.
Who says?
I don't know if he just couldn't find anything he liked, but I mean like literally the emblem was starting to be stitched on all his clothes, not the other way around. Like he wasn't buying Alabama shirts or getting Alabama shirts. He was taking his own clothes and having somebody put an A on.
It's like, who has ever said, you know what, I'm in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and every store I go to, I just can't find any Alabama
Argyle
stuff.
Sweater though. You can't find the Alabama Argyle sweater. Now you can because Nick Saban's made it hit. But like I want to know who he was going to put the emblem on.
What's that one men's store? A lot of recruits found some clothes from there. I don't know that
Saban
found what he was looking for, but a lot of recruits found some clothes.
Listen, we can go into any town in the SEC and talk about those stores, buddy.
What number are we on? All right, let's do number 4 for a second. Actually, I can't tell what's going on here. I can't tell how serious to be about this. This is item number 4 here on our SEC Country Live First and 10 list. So when I saw this one tweet, and Trey Wallace is a terrific reporter. He has broken a lot of news around the SEC. When I read this tweet over the weekend, I slammed on the brakes here. It reads very, very troubling. And I'm a guy that obviously likes to poke fun on of SEC teams, but I like this young man. I think he's a great player, and it concerns me what I read here. Here's Trey Wallace on Twitter talking about Trey Smith. He says the Tennessee offensive line 2017 freshman All-American Trey Smith is going to miss spring practice as he deals with a medical issue that was first discovered after symptoms arose during a recent workout. While he hopes to return for fall camp, it's going to depend on continued medical testing. So when you read that from Trey Wallace, it comes across as potentially pretty concerning. I mean, Smith missing spring practice is a huge issue, and even needing to get some sort of second opinions to be ready for the fall.
Scary.
That seems concerning. But he's actually been seen around Knoxville. This is like an event to raise money for charity. I forget what charity it is, but it's like a polar bear dive. A lot of people have that. It wasn't particularly cold when Tennessee had this, but I want to show you the video. This is an event that Tennessee was a part of. I don't know that Trey Smith shows up in this video, but he was there. So this is the Tennessee team that kind of does this every year for like a good cause. It benefits some charity. I'm not quite sure what it is. I think we do have a picture. We have the photo of Trey Smith at this event here. We will show you that. So there is Smith there at the event. So it seems like everybody's having a good time. Everything is fine, and yet a medical issue is going to keep him out of spring practice. Smith was a terrific player. I got to know a little bit on the recruiting trail going back to the 2017 year. I had a chance to do an interview with him. I mean, what do you make of the situation, somewhat murky, keeping him out of spring practice, but not so big of an issue that he's not being seen publicly?
Yeah, on a personal like player level, boy, this is frightening. This is scary for Trey Smith because I mean there has been rumors out there about what's going on with him. Obviously, I don't want to go in about rumors. I think that you look at maybe possibly a blood clot type of situation when you look at the symptoms and some of the things that are going on. I don't really know. I think it's scary on that level because you wonder what the future looks like. I mean, this is a potential maybe a top 10 pick when you look at his NFL future. I mean, this guy is an incredible football player.
I mean, there are not that many sure things. And Trey Smith is pretty daggum close to a sure thing.
Yeah.
From high school, we said, you know what, he's going to step right in, he's going to play right away at Tennessee. He did. He was their best offensive lineman. He is about as close to a sure thing on the sort of freshman, sophomore, that young side of things. He's about as close to a sure thing as the SEC gives you right now.
No, I think going back to your point is that, he stepped right in and played. Hey, on an offensive line at Tennessee that had its ups and downs, boy, you could count on Trey Smith. I mean, Trey Smith was going to be there. I mean, when you look at some of the other players they've had and some of the other injuries they had last year, Chance Hall getting nicked up before the season even started. Brett Kendrick was in and out. Deshaun Robertson probably didn't play to his level, obviously had injuries too. The offensive line at Tennessee for the last 2 or 3 years has been a bit of a revolving door. I mean, I don't know how many starting combinations they've had, but Trey Smith was the guy you could count on. Now with it, when you look at what Jeremy Pruitt's trying to do, when you look at what Tyson Hilton's trying to do offensively, trying to bring in Keller Chryst as a quarterback and run a pro style and have a good left tackle, boy, football-wise, now I mentioned personal-wise it's scary for Trey Smith. Football-wise for Tennessee football fans, this is the cornerstone of your program. I mean, this is a huge building block for what Jeremy Pruitt's trying to do, and to think that he might not be, able to play, at least not this spring, I think that's scary.
Yeah, if Trey Smith were to somehow miss the 2018 season, Tennessee's winning 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that. I mean, obviously, they've got some younger guys they feel good about in the signing class. They won't be there till July. When you look at the names coming back, I mean, I've got Ryan Johnson, Marcus Tatum, obviously center guys that you expect, to be part of the starting lineup next year. But other than that, I mean, listen, Drew Richmond, I don't know. I mean, you're losing Brett Kendrick. You're losing some other people along that offensive line. I don't know what you're going to get starting offensive line-wise if Trey Smith is not part of this group. I think you have to have him if you even want to look at a bowl game.
So neither one of us are doctors. I hate to even go down this road, but like when a guy like this is missing from the spring, if we're seeing visual evidence of him, I typically take this as at least some sort of good sign. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's not like he's completely disappeared from the picture here. The fact that he's going through an event like this, that he's seen around an event like this, does that make you feel better at all about this situation? Is it unfair to even draw the line between the two things, or what here?
I think that you take any visual evidence as being positive. I think anytime he's able to interact with his teammates, interact with fans, that's going to be a good thing. I'm not ready to take a stab at when he's going to come back and if he's going to play football again and how good he's going to be and how hard he can train and all those things. I just don't know. And so I hate to, kind of get that out there and guess. My only point being is that without Trey Smith, this offensive line, I mean, I hate to even say that this might affect like a Keller Chryst, but I mean, if I'm a quarterback and I'm looking for my 5th year, I don't know if I'm going somewhere without Trey Smith on this offensive line.
Destroyed,
I mean, it opens up so many other possibilities and ways of thinking.
Well, that's why, I mean, I'm not a Tennessee fan, you're not a Tennessee fan, but I think Mike and I both would say we hope to see Trey Smith back playing football again for the Vols. You hate the thought of him missing spring practice for some sort of medical issue. By the way, Sean Christian in the comment section says, even if Trey Smith plays this season, they may only win 3 games. Have you seen that schedule? And, Sean, I think you're right about that. Mike, you and I have talked about this. I think one of the big sort of like preseason storylines, we do a lot of that kind of stuff this time of year in SEC Country Live. For me, one of the biggest preseason storylines is for Jeremy Pruitt coaching his very first game as a head coach. Tennessee has got virtually an impossible schedule to deal with. West Virginia out of conference to start the season. Will Greer may be a Heisman contender. The entire SEC East, but you can sort of make of that what you will. But from the SEC West, have to play both Alabama and Auburn. It is a really, really tough schedule for Tennessee, where I do believe, as the commenter mentioned, wins are just going to be hard to come by.
No, listen, and the thing is, too, when you're at a blue blood program like I believe Tennessee to be, or at least the Tennessee of yesteryear, you kind of look at the schedule. I know fans do this as well, and players, we used to do this probably before Nick Saban got there. Look at the schedule and go, okay, we ought to be able to get this one. All right, this is a win for us. All right, I don't know. I don't know where you're doing that if you're a Tennessee fan going into the offseason. If you're a Tennessee player, that program, you look at the schedule and say, oh, we should win we should win this game, we should win that game. Those games you lost last year, all of them you lost. I mean, you went 0-8 in the SEC, and so tell me where those lockdown games are going to come from. You ought to be able to beat Vanderbilt. You didn't. You ought to be able to beat Kentucky. You didn't. So I don't know at what point you look at it and say, boy, these are games that are going to be easy to win. I don't think you have any of those.
Over on the YouTube side of things, a lot of Georgia fans making the comparison to D'Angelo Gibbs, who's a former Uber recruit for Georgia from the class of 2017, who's also not going through spring practice right now, and those details are a little bit murky as well. I think for me, though, the distinction I draw between Trey Smith and D'Angelo Gibbs is Gibbs may one day be a very good player at Georgia. I assume that he will be. I think he's a defensive back. I assume that he's going to be back healthy and playing and contributing for Georgia. Smith is already Tennessee's best player. So this is not – the D'Angelo Gibbs missing the spring for Georgia this year is more about his future potential. In the case of Trey Smith, he is the cornerstone for the entire ball.
He's the Roquan Smith. Yeah. He's Georgia's Roquan Smith from last year. Alabama's Minkah Fitzpatrick. I mean, that is Trey Smith. And we talked about. I almost like last spring, I thought we were hyping this guy up too much because we're talking about Trey Smith, the guy who had just enrolled at Tennessee, and we're going, boy, he's got to be good for Butch Jones. I thought Butch Jones was going to get fired anyway. It turns out he did get fired.
And not every Uber recruit lives up to the hype the way that Trey Smith did.
Hardly any of them do. I'm not in year one. And I watched Trey Smith in that Georgia Tech game to open the season, and I was so impressed with his leverage, his coachability. I thought that he did such a good job playing guard in that game. He transitioned well to tackle. I was watching him going, this is somebody that Tennessee program, the fans can point to and say, we can build around this guy. I had a teammate like this, Andre Smith. Andre Smith was a teammate like that. I mean, started as a true freshman. You could build around him. He was going to end up being a top 10 pick, and he was. That's what Trey Smith is to me, and it's just, man, a huge hit if he's not able to play.
By the way, we were talking earlier about your contention that Nick Saban couldn't find any athletic apparel, so he had the Alabama A sewed on to his Argyle sweaters. Right. Will Scott in the comment section said he couldn't find any small enough.
Yeah, listen, there's definitely probably some truth to that, too. Nick's not a big guy. I've stood, Nick's like, right here. I love the guy. He's just not a big fella. He's a big personality. You know what I mean?
Speaking of Nick Saban, yeah, that's right. Speaking of Nick Saban, let's talk about him here. For item number 5 on our SEC Country Life First and 10 list. Saban, we showed you some audio earlier of him making an appearance at like some sort of Mercedes convention. I never could figure out what that was, but some sort of, he's a Mercedes dealership owner. One day I dream of maybe owning Mercedes. Nick Saban owns a Mercedes dealership. You're going to talk about two very, very different sort of aspirations. That's the difference between Saban and me, I guess. But nonetheless, Saban also made an appearance at a coaches convention in Atlanta as well within the last few days. And the subject comes up of the need and requirement to replace a bunch of players Alabama loses. Via 24/7 Sports, we get this quote from Nick Saban who says, hey, we lost a lot of good players. I think we've got 15 guys in the NFL Combine, which is far more than anybody else. By the way, Combine comes up here in the next couple days. You can't really replace them. You just have to develop the next guys who come in and hopefully play at a very high level. Mike, we've talked a lot about Alabama losing and needing to replace assistant coaches, but Saban also brings up here the players that it loses. 15 guys in the NFL Combine. We've seen Alabama reload plenty in the past. Any reason to think that won't happen in 2018?
Well, I think the problem being when you're an Alabama fan and looking at at a roster breakdown, you go position by position with who they lost. And I think when you look at that secondary, I mean, it's not just Minkah Fitzpatrick. Boy, it's hard to replace that guy. Ronnie Harrison. Boy, it's hard to replace that guy. Then you go down to 6 deep. I mean, your top 6 DBs from a team that wasn't, I mean, it was a good secondary. I don't know if it was an elite secondary last year. And so when you look at that, boy, you have to wonder about what the situation looks like, specifically when you look ahead to games against some of these spread teams. A team like Jarrett Stidham and Auburn next year, if they are a pass-happy team, boy, you got to wonder what the secondary looks like matched up against them. So, Bama's going to reload. Every year it seems like it's mentioned, what are they going to do without some of these guys rushing the passer off the edge or these defensive linemen or this linebacker? And they find a way to do it. I think this will be the toughest job doing that at one specific position because you're losing so many quality guys back there.
For me, this sort of ties back into what I said the other day. It ends up being the same kind of fuel and motivation for, Saban and the want to avoid the rat poison, they're doubting you because of the assistant coaches, and they're doubting you because of the players in the NFL Combine. They're saying you can't come back and do it again. Yeah. Tua, they're saying you only did it for one half. At a certain point in time, this sort of myth-making that Saban seems to be able to spin to his advantage every single season, as a non-Alabama fan, I get really tired of that over time. I mean, yes, they are losing 15 guys, but, Alabama is still, I think, objectively true from a sort of measurement and metric standpoint. They're still going to be the most talented team in college football. They're still probably a half tick more talented from a 4- and 5-star standpoint than even Georgia is, coming out of what Georgia's been able to do the last 2 recruiting cycles. So, I'm not going to weep a ton for Alabama and its 15 guys in the NFL Combine. And, it kind of frustrates me that the media is giving Saban this platform to once again talk about what a miracle it's going to be when Alabama ends up being a good football team.
Listen, I, as an Alabama guy and as a former player, I look at it and I know that it's just not easy. And so I don't want to act like, I don't want to get on here and act like I'm taking it for granted, saying, boy, it doesn't matter. They're going to roll over everybody. I think I would be doing Alabama's team a disservice by saying it in that way. Saying, boy, it doesn't matter who they're going to stick back there. Shaheed Connor, Deontay Thompson, all those guys will get back there and they'll be fine. It's going to be an uphill battle. Now, Alabama more times than not has found a way to do it, and so obviously Saban deserves credit for that. But I think if I did it the other way around, other than this kind of twisting the comments, I think I'd be doing him a disservice.
Jeremy Pettis, who's an Alabama fan in the comment section, says BA's finally making some sense. Yeah, I mean, for me on this, if we're after February of 2019, we're talking about another Alabama class that sort of barely cracks the top 10. At that point in time, then I'm going to start saying, hey, who's Alabama losing this year and how are they going to replace at that point in time? You know, if you're talking about 2 years in a row of being, 8th, 9th, 10th in the country in recruiting, at that point in time, who you're losing starts to matter. But this is still an Alabama program that's mostly going to lean on years of being the #1 class in the country and a laundry list of high 4 and 5-star guys. So I'm not there yet in terms of worrying about the 15, pros that Alabama's got to replace. But this time next year, I may be listening to that a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think that obviously it's going to, I'll have a lot to do with what they do on the field this year. My question about it is not like, is Bama going to be any good this year? A team's going to pass all over. My kind of question steers towards like, is the offense going to have to take more of the load? That's kind of what, I'm not saying that Bama's defense is going to be bad and that, I just wonder if the way the offense shapes up for next year, because it should be a very good, very young offense next year, Alabama, do they have to shoulder more of the load? Are they going to throw down the field even more than they have in years past? Are they going to have to stay on the field for some of these longer drives and make sure they're giving that defense time to kind of come around?
I also think that if for some reason Saban's not back in that sort of like top 3 in recruiting in 2019, then I think you look at 2019 as maybe being his last year on the field. I don't think that Saban has any interest in coaching with less than the kind of talent that he's been leaning on since you left.
Yeah.
That run from like really even the 2008 team all the way through right now. Alabama fans can be tough to sort of keep happy, but it's a lot easier to keep them happy if you've got way better players than everybody else. I don't think Saban wants to start, coaching with even talent against Auburn and against LSU and against teams like that. If the talent level for Alabama starts to dissipate a little bit, I think that's when Saban decides, it's time to go manage Mercedes dealerships.
Yeah, I've always said to you, that's a great retirement plan.
Right,
Mercedes dealerships. I've always said to you though that I don't know when's Nick's leaving. People ask me all the time how much time is he going to live. Could be 2, could be 10. I have no idea. But I've always said that I believe that it won't be when everybody expects him to.
Yeah.
I think that it'll be a point where almost like Bob Stoops kind of situation, where all of a sudden like July rolls around and he's just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to step away and leave this program, who I think is in good hands. I think it's what Bob Stoops tried to do. So I don't know. I think you can point to situations where the talent's doing this or on the field's doing that. Schedule might be tough and this and that, but I think that it's going to be unexpected either way.
Over on the YouTube side of things, 98 Sports Talk says he thinks the offense is going to carry Alabama more with Tua Tagovailoa. I'd also add to that the most underrated aspect of Alabama, and you can sort of make your own jokes about the second 26 that some of y'all were having fun with a little earlier today. Anyway, 98 Sports Talk says that the offense is going to carry Bama more this season with those wide receivers, Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy. I think that's the most underrated aspect of the Alabama roster right now. I think that's the best trio of receivers probably in the entire country. Do you think that this is, now it's a new coordinator, Mike Locksley, and whatever Dan Enos is impacting this is going to be, do you think this is a more offensive-minded football team, that the offense leads the way more so than the defense in 2018? That's not what we've come to expect from Alabama. It's running the football and playing defense. Because Tua might be so good, because I believe the receivers are so good, is the identity now a little bit different?
I have a hard time believing that Damian Harris is coming back and Najee Harris is going to be in the backfield and Josh Jacobs is going to be in the backfield and the offensive line they've got coming back, that all of a sudden they're going to be some kind of fun and gun, air happy, kind of offense. I think they will have the ability to do that. But I think it comes down to time of possession. I think that when you look at the run game that they might have next year, time of possession is going to be a big deal in keeping that defense off the field. And so I think that at times, obviously, they'll take their shots, and I think they'll be very good at it, specifically if Tua is the starting quarterback. But I don't look for the run dynamic to change. I think they'll try to be 50-50 as much as they possibly can.
Cliff Nelson, he says, BA, Alabama doesn't have the best wide receivers. LSU's got a better wide receiving core. Now, obviously, Cliff's an LSU fan. He likes to sort of poke at us. But LSU, you think LSU's receivers are better than Alabama?
I think LSU's, listen, their measurables are incredible. I mean, Cliff, you tell me, how many 6'5" wide receivers does LSU have? I mean, it seems like every guy on the roster is like 6'4", 6'5", and can run the 4.40. I think the question I have about LSU's wide receivers, I think they're going to have all the talent in the world. Who's going to be throwing them the ball, I think, is the biggest question mark when you look at them. I mean, you can be 6'5", run a 4.4. Miles Bennett's not putting the ball in your breadbasket. I don't know how many stats you're going to have. And so that's the question I have for them moving forward. LSU's wide receiver core has been very good over the last 10, 15 years. It's what kind of production are you going to get out of them that's the biggest deal to me.
Don Pevler, and I hope I pronounced Don's name correctly, says, if Tua wins the starting quarterback job in the season, what happens to Jalen Hurts? Well, I completely agree with what Jeremy Pettis says here. In fact, I said this on Thursday. Jeremy has an answer to that question. Says Saban's going to start Hurts the first game, so he doesn't transfer. Tua comes in at quarterback, kind of after that. That's what Jeremy Pettis says. I told you that on Thursday. I absolutely believe that. I believe that Jalen Hurts is going to be talked up as the quote-unquote leader for the job coming out of the spring, and you better get ready for Hurts-temper. That's what I'm going to label it as. The month of September is going to be changed to Hurts-temper.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of Jalen Hurts in September. It's going to be Hurts-temper.
Yeah.
As he is really going to push it out there a lot to make sure that he stays around. Now, by October, it's going to be back to Tua Tagovailoa doing what he should have been doing that time a year ago.
Yeah.
But you better get ready for a lot of Jalen Hurts to start the season.
Well, and listen, Nick's had to downplay what Tua will be since Tua arrived on campus. I mean, the backup quarterback's always the most popular guy.
Because they can beat Louisville with Mac Jones.
Well, that's the thing.
I was a 30-point favorite in week 1.
I was going to make the point that this is not.
Sorry.
I was going to make the point that this is not Florida State last year, where you're rolling in thinking, man, this is going to be a top 5 matchup, top 3 matchup, possibly. When you look at what Florida State was. There is, when you look at what Louisville is, I think they are 28.5-point, favorites in the game. So it's not like you have to go out there. I agree with you. I think that Jalen Hurts will be talked up. I think that, that's honestly what Nick Saban has to do. I wouldn't expect him to do anything. I think every other coach in the SEC probably takes that same role.
So along those lines, then we're going to talk about Florida after this. Along those lines, is there a chance it's true? I mean, is there a chance that Jalen Hurts could still be better than 2 quarterbacks? Because, I will admit, I was very, very pro Tua. Even during the season last year, I just believe that Tua is the better of the 2 quarterbacks. But I'm also wrong, plenty, as y'all are very fond of pointing out to me. Is there a chance that Jalen Hurts is still the better of the 2 quarterbacks?
I don't. And listen, there was no bigger fan for the last 2 years of Jalen Hurts than me. But I think I remember telling you this after I went to the scrimmage last fall at Alabama. It was like 2 weeks from the season, and I went there and Jalen Hurts is good, but boy, you should see this backup quarterback. Right. And obviously, you knew who Tua Tagovailoa was. Incredible. I mean, he's running around, he's making dime throws, he's making plays with his legs, he's doing everything you could ask, and it just took him a while to break in. So, in hindsight, knowing what I think Tua's mobility is, knowing what I think his arm strength is, knowing what I think, obviously having another year in the program mentally, I'm just not sure that Jalen's legs can overcome for all those different things that Tua does well.
All right, let's do item number 6 here in our SEC Country Live First and 10 list. First of all, we're glad to have you on the program today. And 24/7 Sports, I saw this online, and to be honest with you, I don't really know what the context from this was. I'm assuming this goes back to a recent media availability that the Florida quarterbacks coach Brian Johnson gave. But he gave a quote about the quarterback situation in Florida. I thought it was worth us bringing up here today about Felipe Franks maybe being ahead of the incoming freshman Emory Jones. Let me show you Brian Johnson here, courtesy of 24/7 Sports. The quote here that I thought was telling. He says, I think sometimes it's very, very hard to make up for the experience or lack thereof of some of the guys. I think that's life's best teacher, experience. Franks might have some advantages in having played in SEC football games before, but from a standpoint of us practicing putting in the offense, everybody's kind of starting from ground zero. So at the end there, he sort of makes it sound like, hey, this is anybody's job to win. But somehow the beginning of that quote sort of feels more relevant to me, where he talks about experience, being a hard thing to replicate. Do you take that as Felipe Franks is I don't want to say the leader of the job because practice hasn't started.
Yeah.
The favorite for the job. Is he the favorite for the job, given the fact that he's the more experienced between he and Emory Jones?
I wouldn't be shy, especially at this point in time, if he is the favorite of the job. In the coach's eyes and in the team's eyes, I think when you look at what Felipe Franks did last year, the whole deck was kind of stacked against him, and he was asked to do some things he's probably not very good at. Extend plays. His offensive line wasn't great. The running game wasn't as good as you wanted it to be under Jim McElwain, so he had to do some things. So I don't have any amount of a hard time believing that right now he is the leader. I think at this point last year we were pointing to Jarrett Stidham, and they were saying Sean White. Boy, Sean White's going to be given every opportunity.
Well, we also called BS on that from the very.
Well, I know that's kind of my point.
From the word go.
That's kind of my point. Is we're talking about coaches, talking about quarterbacks up during the spring.
But Emory Jones not Jarrett Stidham.
Well, he's not. He's not. And listen, I would believe right now that Felipe Franks is the better quarterback. I wholeheartedly believe that. But I think for the future of the program, Emory Jones should be on the field this week. I think when you look at what Dan Mullen is offensively, when you look at what Emory Jones could be, I think Emory Jones at some point has to play this season.
So I have a lot of complicated questions. So I'm going to rattle these off for a second.
Go ahead.
And I'll try to make these as succinct as I can. We heard a lot of whispers last year during the season that Luke Del Rio was always the best of the Florida quarterbacks, and they finally settled on him right before he got hurt. We don't really know how the Florida season would have turned out had Del Rio stayed healthy, but but he was the guy. I think you and I both kind of assumed that it was sort of hard to start him to begin the 2017 season because Florida fans had gotten tired of him back in 2016.
Yeah.
Are they tired of Felipe Franks? Can you start Felipe Franks in September against what Florida this year is? There's no Michigan, kind of a cupcake schedule. Is it okay to start Felipe Franks this year, or are they as tired of Franks now as they apparently were of Del Rio last year?
Well, I think you have a new head coach. I think it's kind of starting from zero right now, like he mentions in that quote there. And I think that all the fans are kind of giving Felipe Franks new life because, hey, with Felipe Franks, what he did last year, obviously the offense wasn't good. What is he going to look like in Dan Mullen's offense? And so I don't want to speak for Florida fans. You guys tell me, but I feel like Florida fans would give Dan Mullen a pass for starting Felipe Franks in Week 1. I think that obviously, like I just mentioned, you want to see Emory Jones on the field at some point. You believe he's the future of the program. But I don't think you would be really sad to see Felipe Franks take the field.
Diedrich Frazier says, come on. Mullen doesn't want Felipe Franks to transfer, essentially saying that this Felipe conversation is just like the Jalen Hurts conversation we were just having. I mean, is there a chance it's just as simple as that this is the same sort of dangling the carrot out in front of you the way that I assume that Saban's doing with Jalen Hurts will do with Jalen Hurts, that these quotes are just intended to have the same, effect on Felipe Franks?
I think that there's always that aspect to look at, but when I look at Emory Jones and the All-American game he played in, I don't think he looked that great. I don't know that he won any Elite 11 competitions like Tua Tagovailoa did. And we've mentioned from the beginning that he's just not as polished as a Justin Fields. He's going to need Dan Mullen to kind of take him under his wing and do some good things with him. And so I think you can always look at that aspect. I think they'd love Felipe Franks to stay on campus there and stay a part of that program. I think Emory Jones ends up being the starter, but I don't know that Emory Jones – I think I take this to be kind of honest just from what I've seen from Emory Jones on film.
So this brings to mind two thoughts for me, and I'll make these as quick as I can. You won't remember this. You may have even still been playing the NFL when this happened. But when Jim McElwain started at Florida, the first snap of the first practice – with the #1 offense was given to Will Grier. After practice, McElwain pretended not to know who had gotten that first snap, but we would all agree that the first snap matters here. Well, for the Florida spring practice this year, the first two are going to be open to the public. And my guess is, based on that quote from Brian Johnson there, we are going to see Felipe Franks taking those first snaps. And, this to me is a little bit different than some quarterback situations, and I've brought this up to you before. Because you're not playing any kind of real team to start the season, you don't have Tennessee coming in for a little while there. I do think it probably works well for Florida. Instead of naming Emory Jones the quarterback to start the season, that can almost have the effect of feeling like something had been given to them. Whereas in this case, let him beat out Felipe Franks. Treat Franks like the incumbent, even though most Gators fans hope he's not. And then, hopefully by the time you get to the Tennessee game, which is usually Week 3 of the season, whatever that is this year, at that point in time, hopefully by then, Emory Jones has earned the job. So this is a little bit different than I might say about some of these quarterback jobs where I sort of get irritated with the coaches sort of playing the game.
Right.
I don't mind Florida playing the game here.
Nope.
It actually may make Emory Jones better in the long run.
I think it does. Listen, it makes you wake up early, makes you get the extra weight room session. It makes you obviously spend time with your quarterback coach. And I mentioned this to you about establishing leadership. When you talk about how these coaches go in, and at Alabama, and I'm sure it's this way at a lot of programs, you don't select captains before the year. You select captains at the end of the year because when you do that before the year, it kind of relieves everybody else of their duties. I think you look at a situation like that, you don't want to name the guy. Hey, let's battle it out. Even if one is head and shoulders above the other one, let's see what kind of happens as things start to roll on and who connects with the receiving corps.
All right, we're later than we've been in a while. We got to pick up the pace here a little bit. Item number 7, speaking of Florida, the dark cloud of FBI, NCAA, Yahoo Sports investigations, that's hanging over a lot of SEC teams right now. Florida, though, was playing Auburn. By the way, Gators got the win. They also took an opportunity, as Barstool Sports shared on Twitter, to give a little grief to the Auburn program, kind of mixed up in the FBI investigation, chanting the Bureau's name here, also throwing some money at the players. Take a look at this on Twitter from the Florida students. I mean, in a way, and this is what students do, and I don't have a problem with it, it's just it's all in fun for me for the most part, but one guy's picking up the money. But, I mean, if you're Auburn, or the other SEC teams that are kind of mixed up in this, Kentucky sort of mentioned by the Yahoo story, with Kevin Knox, Alabama with Colin Sexton. I mean, how are you supposed to feel about this right now?
I hate that video. I'm not even going to lie. I hate that video. And listen, I think that, obviously Auburn fans are going to hate the video too. As far as I'm concerned, you guys tell me if I'm wrong here, the 2 players that are implicated have not played for Auburn this year, if I'm not mistaken about that. So those guys aren't even on the floor. You got these guys just trying to do the thing, and you got this girl just yelling FBI and throwing money at them. I mean, come on, man. Like, Florida fans, y'all are probably laughing about this, but if this was brought up to me earlier today. Like, with Florida, like, all the arrests they had under the Urban Meyer regime, can you imagine if somebody was, like, chanting, like, FBI at them? Like, I don't like that, and this is just a former player coming out at me being like, I would have been mad if somebody was chanting that at me. Now, when you look at it from the aspect, this is SEC fandom.
Yeah.
This is SEC fanhood. You're going to see that, especially from the student section. But boy, I'm not a fan of it, man. I think it's a bad look for everybody involved.
Rick Martin says there's too much money involved in all this. The NCAA is not going to do anything but the basketball scandal. I, for the most part, completely agree with Rick. Kevin Chapman says that he loved what he saw. He said they could have also done the same thing with Cam Newton in football. I mean, maybe that was the case. You're going to go back to 2010. I don't mind fans being fans and having a good time.
I'm telling you right now, we would get this at away games. When we go in the tunnel, and I'm just telling you right now, you hear things that you just shouldn't hear. And it's so irritating. It's like, listen, we just want to show up and play the game.
Yeah.
It's a different perspective, and I understand it. I have been fans at games, and I've done things like that, and you start chanting things. But it goes back to me, we talked about John Curry when the Tennessee fans were, chanting, fire John Curry in basketball. These guys want to show up and play the game. They want to get out there and do the thing. None of these guys that were on the floor, from what I know, were implicated in this. So it just kind of sucks to me.
So you say you've done things like that in the past, but have you ever done anything like this? It's the subject of item number 8 here on our SEC Country Line First and 10 list. And it's Texas A&M quarterback Nick Starkel, who ought to be a big deal. He's the quarterback of the Aggies. That's a major program. There's no telling how many good-looking co-eds there in College Station would love to hang out with the quarterback. But apparently, for now, Starkel's more focused on a celebrity that he wants to meet. He wants to meet the Beebs. Is Nick Starkel a believer? Take a look at this from his Twitter.
Howdy. I'm Nick Starkel, quarterback at Texas A&M, and today is my 20th birthday. You see, a lot of people want different things on their birthdays, but for me, I just have one wish, and that wish is to meet Justin Bieber. So some of you may be asking, how are you going to do this impossible feat? Well, don't worry. I have a plan.
So clearly Starkel's got a good sense of humor about all this. It's a really well done video. But the weird thing is the connection that Starkel has to Bieber here goes well beyond just this video. He also shared on his social media, going back to the season, he actually wore a Justin Bieber t-shirt as good luck. Can we show you some of that?
The first time me and JD ever hung out, we went to the mall. He went to go get a Justin Bieber t-shirt, and I decided I'll get one as well. Not only did I buy a Justin Bieber t-shirt, but I wore it underneath my jersey for the rest of the season as a good luck charm. As you can imagine, people had mixed emotions about this shirt.
Well, Nick Starkel's got a good luck charm he's been wearing underneath his Texas A&M jersey the last few games. He took the field again today in a Justin Bieber t-shirt, and he's wearing it underneath his pads. We understand tonight, 3 games in a row.
I don't know. I didn't know that. I didn't know we had that clip.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that. I heard you say Bieber earlier. I'm like, what? You're talking about Justin Bieber, but hey, if it works, it works.
So he then goes on to sort of lay out what his plan is, which is he wants to utilize another celebrity to meet Bieber here. One more clip to show you, and then we'll try to decide what all this means. Here's a little more from A&M quarterback Nick Starkel and his admiration for Justin Bieber.
This spring break, March 10th through 17th, JD and I are going to LA with one goal in mind: meet Justin Bieber. Do you know who else lives in LA and would be the perfect person to help us meet Justin Bieber? Ellen. Hey, Ellen. So, Ellen, we know that you love making people's dreams come true. So would you help us make our dream come true of meeting Justin Bieber?
Please.
Thanks, and gig 'em.
So I can't endorse any of this. And I'm not trying to be like an old curmudgeon, but shouldn't you be reading a playbook? I mean, shouldn't you be studying opposing defenses? I mean, if you're Jimbo Fisher, what do you think about this?
Bo Molinari, get your guy. I mean, like, this is so bad. This is
Bo,
so
one
bad.
of our commenters, is a big Texas A&M fan.
This is so bad. I mean, this is so bad. I can't even, I don't even know where to start with this. I mean, you are a starting quarterback in the SEC for Texas A&M. And you are just making yourself look like I don't know. I'm so let down by this. This guy's got to have enough clout to where he feels like a celebrity at some point, right? I mean, so why are you reaching out being like, Ellen, please? Like,
I mean,
Justin Bieber, for God's sake.
Like, you had what the previous Texas A&M quarterback, like Katy Perry wanted to meet him, and now he wants to meet Justin Bieber. I mean, you see how kind of we're falling here?
You're a starting quarterback in the SEC.
Yeah, use that to your advantage.
Somebody should be wanting to meet you, man. And like,
Now, I'm going to give him credit for this. He's got a great personality. He's got a terrific sense of humor. This video is incredibly well done. I think this is all kind of done with a wink and a nod. But for me, this is a lot of time to be spent on something pretty hokey.
I've got a small hot take for you. This is the worst video we've aired on this show.
That's a pretty strong opinion.
We've aired some bad videos. Obviously, I can't go back through them all. But this is terrible. This is terrible. Dude, do yourself a favor and hold yourself in higher esteem. Like, that's all I keep thinking.
Think about like a legendary former Texas A&M coach. What would Jackie Sherrill think about this video?
What about Bear Bryant?
That's right. Think about
Bear Bryant.
Think about the Junction boys.
This guy's
there.
off the team.
What would Bear Bryant think about Nick Starkel's video?
You have to go. You got to transfer somebody.
Honestly, I hate to be this way. We like to keep it fun, but man, I cannot endorse that video.
He is a believer.
But if you didn't like that video, maybe you'll like this one. It's the subject item number 9 here on our SEC Country Live First and 10 list. You want to know why the athletic directors in the SEC have a very hard job? Because even in the offseason, fans still have demands, and sometimes they have very creative ways of expressing those demands, including one Tennessee fan who we've shown before who has got his idea for how the look of Neyland Stadium should be, and he doesn't think it should include Butch Jones anymore, even though the season is still several months away from beginning. I thought this was funny. I think you'll like it as well.
Lord knows that I'm a Tennessee fan, but there's one thing that I don't understand. Why do we still have to keep looking at that face? It's been 100 days since he's been gone. I think it's about time that we move on, 'cause the ball around here seen enough of old Butch Jones. Why is he still on the Jumbotron? Just cover it up because he don't belong. Tear it all down brick by brick. If I see it again, I'm gonna be sick. It's been 100 days since he's been gone, so why's he still on the Jumbotron? We're the Tennessee Vols and we can't go on if Butch Jones is still on the Jumbotron.
So first of all, I think this guy's incredibly talented. I think he's a good guitar player. I think he's a good singer. I think he's got a little stage presence about him. I think that, by the way, Tony Paul, holla at your folks here. We think you're doing a good job there with what you're doing. But what he's singing about is it's the Jumbotron, like this, basically like the scoreboard at the top of Neyland Stadium, that still has Butch Jones' face on it. But I sort of want to give Philip Fulmer, or I would have even said the same thing about John Curry. I mean, it's only February. Can we give him a little bit of a free pass when the season starts? Does it have to be changed right now?
I don't know. I mean, I try to think of like situations where there's been trades, or how fast did Penn State take down the Joe Paterno statue and all these things going on? It's obviously
that's a different point. Galaxy.
I know it's a different galaxy. My point is that Tennessee's got the money and everything, every other resource you need to be able to go and do this. I mean, let's be honest. What has it been? Going on 3 months since he's been fired. Almost 4 months since he's been fired.
Yeah.
So I'll give them a little bit of pass. By the time the spring game gets here, though, by God, the thing better be down.
They probably don't know who they want to put up there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right about that. Now, that is actually a good point. You can't play the spring game with Butch Jones looking down
Can't have it.
from the heavens.
And I think that where it's at's on the back of the scoreboard, so you can see it from like the river and all that stuff outside the stadium. I mean,
I love my guy's line about tearing it down brick by brick, which is obviously a play off one of Butch Jones' famous phrases. This guy, I like his music. I gotta tell you,
he's good.
He's had a few of these. We played a lot of them here. He also did the Ed Orgeron. Did he do the Ed Orgeron song too? Was he the Orgeron song guy?
I don't know. He's better than Justin Bieber, though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that is such a good point. That's who Nick Starkel want to meet. You don't want to meet Tony Paul of All for Life.
So bad. Oh man, can't get over that video.
All right, we don't talk a lot of baseball here on SEC Country Live, but kind of a weird thing happened in a baseball game this weekend. I think it's probably worth investigating here a little bit. LSU player has a big moment, comes up with a big hit at a key time, and then kind of, I don't know, he kind of loses his mind here for a second. I think we have the picture. Somebody kind of captions on Twitter. At Valley Shook found this of the LSU player here flipping off the
Bo Jordan's
his name.
Yeah.
That's right. Bo Jordan is the player's name. He flips off the pitcher after he gets a base hit during a key time. Another player who plays, I believe, for Mississippi State also kind of weighed in on Twitter about how this is Cale Bro, who says that Bo, Bryce, Sugar, and I all play travel ball. This is the pitcher and some of the guys involved in this. Two crazy dudes in competitive environment. Great people as well, kind of explaining why Bo Jordan had flipped off Chase Sugar in the moment during the baseball game over the weekend. The LSU baseball coach kind of responded here as well about the gesture during the game. Here's Paul Maneri, the LSU baseball coach, says, unfortunately, the intensity of the moment got too high there with Bo. He lost control of himself. Obviously, he was baited. Yet at the same time, he has to have a little bit more self-control than that. He had a tremendous at-bat, but it was very important at-bat in the ball game, but I just can't condone him acting in that way. Now, I have sort of mixed feelings on this. On the one hand, we can't see what y'all football players are doing during most of the game. My guess is that, like, when y'all are all huddled in there together, whatever's going on during a football game is a lot worse than one guy, using one middle finger towards a pitcher. So from that standpoint, I can't come down too hard on this guy. My biggest grief, though, is this is only a single. You got a base hit, you got a single, and you're flipping the bird on a base hit.
Yeah.
I feel like you got to hit the ball 500 feet if you're going to be showing the middle finger to the pitcher. Don't you think so?
Yeah, well, obviously, them being friends adds a different dynamic to it. But you mentioned it. Football players kind of get mixed up. Guess what? You're mixed up until you're not mixed up. Ask Baker Mayfield when he grabs his crotch going across the field. I mean, you're thinking football players aren't on screen for any of this stuff. A lot of that stuff's been captured lately. I think you saw Johnny Manziel in an NFL game actually give the bird to somebody too. So obviously not a good look. I don't know much of the backstory about them being friends and knowing each other, but it happened. I guess this is SEC baseball at its prime.
It just means more. Cliff Nelson says something must have happened between the two. Can you just flip your bat like a gentleman? I mean, whatever happened to that?
I would love to know the backstory because Paul Maneri alludes to it. Obviously, he was baited and some of the stuff going like this. You guys tell us in the comment section. Going back, Cody Rosenbaum did have a good comment about Butch Jones. How long do you give it before your ex-girlfriend's picture is taken down in your house? How long does your new girlfriend give you before that one's got to go? You don't give you 4 months.
You just have like the rip picture.
Yeah, you have the rip picture.
Just in the stadium without the Butch Jones.
Yeah. So you have to make that work sooner than later.
All right. Speaking of, by the way, Tennessee, and we talked a little earlier about the polar bear dive that Tennessee had taken, and we sort of dealt with that in a little bit more serious context a little earlier. There was one moment from that event that I thought was pretty funny, and I want to make that the subject of our Champion of Life here today, because after all, here on SEC Country Live, we're always looking to close the show the same way every day. We're always looking for Champions of Life, and today, Jarrett Garantano, who hopes to beat out Will McBride, maybe Keller Chryst if he comes to town, and a lot of other folks, the Tennessee quarterback job. Well, hopefully he's better at being a quarterback than he is at doing dives off diving boards, because Garantano here has a little issue with his attempted flip and ends up doing see it for yourself here as was captured on social media.
Oh! Man, now the face it bro thing makes a lot more sense after you say
I mean, first of all, that's semi-amazing. He bounced up out of the water pretty quick. Now, quarterbacks have a little bit of a cool factor about them, so he's not acting like that face is burning as bad as you know that it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you know that.
He tried to walk it off.
Nostrils full of water. I mean, like how much are his nostrils just full of water right now?
He's hurting so bad right now. What's funny, I think the diving board gave a little bit more than he's used to. The backyard diving boards are a lot different than the one.
So you know what? I'm actually not even going to rip him that much. I think the way that he
would
tries
have busted my face too. Yeah.
But the way he plays it off pretty cool there at the end, that's better than I would have done.
Yeah.
Had the same thing happen.
You got to stroll it out. Doesn't matter how bad you're hurting. You've got to walk that one off and act like nothing happened.
Yeah, sort of like the baseball deal. If you get hit by a pitch, you cannot rub it.
Too many cameras.
All right, thanks so much for being with us here at SEC Country Live. For those of you that watch us on YouTube, we appreciate you being there. On Facebook, we appreciate you as well. If you're on Facebook, share it with your friends. Let them know we're talking about the SEC each and every day. And if you want to hear the full audio version of the show, we'll have the podcast posted for you really here in just the next couple of minutes. So you can check that out. Thanks for being here on SEC Country Live, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.